Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to day two of our introduction to programming in JavaScript class. Yesterday we looked at a little introduction to programming in general. Then we touched a little bit on JavaScript, or like the very basics of JavaScript. Today we're going to be going into other stuff, but before I go further, I am going to just um go over what we talked about yesterday, give more examples, then talk about some data types we talked about. Then I'm going to show you some new stuff that you need to know about JavaScript, variables, and data types. I added a new section here, so I'm going to show you how I think yesterday I was just critically displaying I think I was just using one method to display our test JavaScript on the web page. So I'm just going to show you possible ways you can play around with JavaScript and see the output. So I'm just going to show you how to run JavaScript code, right? You can use your console log, or you can use the DOM, okay? So I'm just going to jump into the material guide that we've been using. Then I'm going to start, right? So before I go into or revise what we talked about yesterday, I'm just going to show you how you can run JavaScript code from your project folder from the web, right? So I was using the DOM yesterday, right? So what we've been doing, right? We've just been looking at basics of JavaScript, how to maybe create variables, operators, calculations, and assignments, right? The goal of using JavaScript on the web is what we call DOM, like the HTML DOM, right? So we are going to get there, right? But you need to understand basics of JavaScript, like variables, functions, objects before, and especially arrays, right? Before we understand how to manipulate the DOM, right? So with JavaScript, you can change content. For example, I think in the introduction of this lesson, they did one of those stuff, right? So I can display the date, I can turn on this light and turn off the light, right? So with JavaScript, you can manipulate everything on the web page, right? But you need to learn how to use JavaScript first before we get to the DOM. Our goal is to understand how to manipulate the HTML document with JavaScript, right? So I'm just going to show you two possible ways, right? Because you're going to be doing this stuff for your own a lot. So you're going to be practicing. I'm just going to show you two possible ways to run your code, right? The first one I want to show you is the console log, right? I didn't talk about it yesterday, but it is the easiest and most common way to just maybe play around and test your code, right? So I am just going to go to my code editor, right? I haven't talked about methods, and console.log is a method. So you just kind of know console.log is used to maybe display or log out outputs in your developer console, right? So from yesterday, I think we had this example yesterday, right? So this is a variable y, z is x times y, okay, x plus y. So I think this will just give us Volvo 7. Then if I want to display this, I'm just going to go live on this, so open it on my browser. And as expected, I have an empty document. I'm just going to do a console.log. So this is the command, like console, like log this in the console. So this is a class, and this is a function, this is a method, right? And I put in, I want to see the value of Z. Okay. If I save this right now and go to my browser, I won't see anything on my web page, right? Because the command says log it out to the console. So this is the web page. This is the DOM. If you want to see it, like what we did yesterday, I'm going to go to my developer tools, and there are two ways to get there, right? I can just right click and click on inspect. We're going to have one full class, or maybe I think half of a class, where I'm going to show you guys how to use your developers console, right? So again, I'm just going to close this. The direct way to get here is to go to options in your browser. If you're using Chrome, you just go to options, more tools, and you see developer tools, right? You click on it. But if you don't want to go that way, you can just right click, inspect, then you're going to get the developer tools, then you go to console. Okay, so if you can see, let me see if I can zoom this. Yeah, if you can see, this is the value I outputted on my console, right? So I can send anything to the developer console to kind of check my code, check progress. So this is the user, we call it developer console because maybe the user of your website. Okay, let me just put something on our web page. So I'll actually have content on our web page, right? So this is, okay, my font is too big. So this is the web page, right? The user doesn't see this because we call it maybe the debug console or like the developer console, right? So I can test JavaScript, play around with JavaScript, and maybe I'm checking something and I say this, and I just want to see something, this line of code works, right? So it's just me, the developer, or anyone that knows about the console that can come here and see this stuff, okay? So this is just one way, and I think we might use the console today. So this is just one way to play around with JavaScript and see output, right? Okay, then I'm just going to go to the second one, which is what we were using yesterday, DOM, right? So what DOM means, right? DOM means like document object model, right? So JavaScript has access to everything on the web page via the DOM, right? So JavaScript can read everything in your HTML document, right? So if I want to maybe play around and edit and change whatever is on the HTML document, I'm going to use the document object model. It's called the DOM. So I'm just going to comment this out and bring this back. We used this yesterday. The command is, you're going to learn this later, right? So there are a whole lot of commands you can use. Let me see if I can just show document. Yeah, there's create elements. I can from JavaScript, right? You know, previously I had to come here and do H1 every time if I want to create an element, but you're going to see later we can programmatically create an element, right? So there's create elements, query selector. There are a whole lot of them, but the one we're using is get elements by ID, right? What this just means is look for an element that has an ID of display. I think it's display, I named it. Yeah, so if you see, we have a HTML element that has an ID of display. Then set the inner text, inner HTML equals to Z. I think this was what we did. If I save this, go to my browser, I'm going to see that from JavaScript, okay, this is cool. If you can see, I have a text here, right? But I changed what is inside that P tag or that HTML element from JavaScript, right? So JavaScript has access to everything in your HTML document. I can even set a style sheet from JavaScript, right? I can do document.head.append. I can append the style sheet, but we're going to get into all that later, right? But the main point is there are more ways you can test and play around JavaScript. So these are just two. We worked with the document object model yesterday, but I'm going to use the console sometimes, and I'm going to use the DOM. And there's another way, maybe you can test it on your own, because I don't think Zoom allows me or allows you to see a pop-up modal on my screen. So you can use alerts or window.print, or yeah, just alerts does the job, right? But you won't be able to see, I have a little modal on my screen, right? So just know, like, these are the 2 or 3 ways you can play around with JavaScript and see your output. Okay, so let's just go over what we have for today. Yeah, I wanted to start with variables, right? So I wanted to talk about variables again. So in JavaScript, you're going to be using variables most of the times, right? So a variable is, okay, variables are containers for storing data. So if you were not here yesterday, we talked about variables and JavaScript syntax and keywords, right? So variables are containers for storing data, right? And the way the syntax to declare variables in JavaScript is the comma, the keyword, the identifier, which is the variable name, and the assignment operator, then the value, right? So I'm just going to take this whole off. and just try type it again. Let's name equals Sammy, right? So this is just a typical example to the an example of a variable, right? So you put in the keywords and you have to know all the keywords, right? So the keywords to create variables are var, let, and const. We're going to talk about all the differences again today, right? But what you should know, right, in programming, and in every programming language has their syntax and keywords. So if you want to write programs in that particular domain or that particular language, you have to learn their keywords, right? So if I just go to JavaScript syntax, yeah, so this is the typical JavaScript syntax. So JavaScript syntax is a set of rules, how JavaScript programs are constructed. So this can be different in different programming languages, right? Some programming languages require a semicolon, some doesn't. JavaScript doesn't require, like, you can add it, but it doesn't require a semicolon, right? So JavaScript values, JavaScript literals, JavaScript variables, right? So in a programming language, variables are used to store data values. JavaScript uses the var, let, and const keyword to declare variables, right? So equal sign is used to assign values to variables. So this equal sign here is not like an equation symbol like in algebra. So this is just assign the value of what's in this left, like this string or number, to this variable. When we start playing around with variables, you're going to see the importance of all these commands and how to create and use variables, okay? Let me just go back to my variables lesson. So we talked about declaring variables, right? We declare different types of variables, right? Then we talked about some little differences between var and const, right? So var, let, and const, right? So if I use var to declare this variable, I can still come in and do var name equals right, and it's still going to work. So let me use console. Okay, let me use the inner HTML, right? So if I output name, rather than Sammy, is going to display Omo, because this is just how var behaves, right? So this is just like it's an older keyword to declare a variable, but the updated versions of JavaScript introduce let, right? So if I do let name equals Sammy, I can't redeclare the variable name, right? So, but I can change the value to something else. Let me use, I think name is a reserved keyword, right? Let me use my name. Okay, if I do this, my name will be Omo. Yeah, so these are just little things you just need to know, little differences you just need to know about the two of them. The major difference between const is that it's constant, right? So if I do const my name equals Sammy, I cannot redefine it, so I cannot assign a new value to my name. Is going to throw an error. Okay, so if you check your console, so if you're writing with JavaScript, if you have an error or you did something wrong, you're going to see an error output in your console. So we're going to, when we talk about errors, you're going to see the different types of errors, right? So so these are just basic three differences between these three types of variable declaration. There are more to it. There's block scope differences and hoisting differences, but I don't want to talk about that now. Okay. So, okay, just like in algebra, variables hold values, right? So let x equals 5, y equals 6, and you can do mathematical computations, right? So computers are good with numbers, so it just makes typical sense that they can do calculations or run calculations very fast, right? We played around with all this yesterday, right? So if I just try to do it again, let x 5, y equals 6, then z equals x plus y. It will compute the value of x plus y and assign to z. And again, these are just slight examples. I can do like seriously complex mathematical computations, right? I can, if I know how to do that, I can like maybe x times, let me see, let me try x times y minus, let's say, minus 2 times x plus, like I can do heavy mathematical computations, and it's going to calculate it and assign the value to z in runtime. It's going to calculate this in memory and assign the result of all this to z, and the results of all this to z, and give us the value. I did not even know what that was going to result to, so but the value is 8. So you can do mathematical computations in JavaScript. We're going to look at that in arithmetic shortly, right? So basically, right, you should just be, why I'm going over this again, you should just be comfortable with creating variables, assigning variables, and how like using variables work, right? So you use let's identifier, and remember, you can name your variables anything, right? But just know they can never start with a number. If I try to do 2, like maybe twice, or let me just say 2, I don't know, just if I try to start it with a number, it's going to kind of throw an error, but I can write a text and add a number to it. It's going to work just fine, right? So just know that variable names can have numbers, but can't begin with a number. Okay, so these are just rules for JavaScript identifiers. So all JavaScript variables must be identified with unique names, right? These unique names are called identifiers. Identifiers can be short names like X, Y, or more descriptive names like age, sum, or total volume. You can call it anything. There's no limit. I can call this A to Z, like 26 characters, and it's going to work perfectly fine. Okay, so names, these are just general rules. So you can contain underscore digits, but they cannot have reserved words, right? So I was looking for this yesterday, but I saw it later. So these are reserved words in JavaScript, right? So these reserved words are words like in JavaScript. You cannot use these reserved words as variables, labels, or function names, right? Because the programming language uses it internally to run your program. So we have, I think all programming languages have reserved words, right? So I cannot use abstract, I cannot use break, car, debugger. So if I try, let me just try create a variable named finally. It's going to like, it's my VS Code is already throwing an error, right? And I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try, let me try null. I'm going to say let's null. So all these are reserved words, right? So I can't use this as variable names. It's already throwing an error. So let me just save and try display it. So it's showing an error, unexpected token null. Okay, so variable names cannot contain or cannot be like variable identifiers cannot be reserved words. So all these are reserved words that JavaScript uses to run programs internally. So I'm just going to go back to variables. Okay, so these are just kind of conventional do's and don'ts about variables, right? So okay, I think I skipped this yesterday, right? So variables are case sensitive, right? So if I do let today equals, okay, let number equals 5, and I come here and do number like in, okay, let me use all caps, number. So these are two different variables, right? And they store two different values. So it's variable names in JavaScript are case sensitive. So if I come here and output number in caps lock to our web page, I save, is going to output 6, right? Because the number in caps lock has the value of 6, but if I use the number in small letters, it's going to output 5. So what you should know is variable names are case sensitive, right? So if you maybe declare a variable with username, maybe you're building a program and declare a variable username, like in this same capitalization, right? And you want to use it later, right? And say, let me just take this off and say, let's, if, okay, we're going to get to that. So you want to say maybe good morning user. Okay, let me make this more. Username is Sammy. Sammy is always my username. You want to say good morning user, and you now put username, right? So this is going to throw an error first of all, because there is no reference error, right? There is no variable named username because the capitalization is wrong. But if I change this to the type of capitalization we have here, it's going to display Sammy. So variable names are case sensitive. You always have to type the same name you typed, okay? So again, you should know this, the equal sign is an assignment operator, not an equal to operator. So previously, maybe in other instances, equal to means like equating, like, right? But in JavaScript, or I think in a few programming languages, equal to is an assignment operator. So we talked about that yesterday. Okay. So if you want to use equal to, we're going to get that to that in conditionals, right? You use the double equal to operator. Okay, we talked about data types, right? So I added, or I kind of bolded some data types right here today. We're going to talk about, or we're going to deliberate more on them. So data types are JavaScript can hold numbers like 100 and text values like John Doe, right? So data types are just different types of data we can work with in JavaScript. All programming languages has and works with data types, right? In programming, text values are called strings. Numbers are called numbers also, right? So JavaScript can handle many types of data. But for now, just think of numbers and strings. So it's always easy to start with understanding, just like fully understanding strings and numbers, right? So if you understand strings and numbers, you're going to understand so many other ones, right? So today we're going to talk about date, right? So you're going to see that there's a data type called date. So let me just show you something before I get back. So, right, so with JavaScript, you can play around and manipulate dates, right? So the data type might not be necessarily string, right? So you can see that you can like call year, months, day, hours, minutes, seconds. When we start building programs, you're going to see the importance of all these things, right? So you can declare dates and give it like kind of call different values you want to see. So those are just different data types. But for now, we are just going to focus on strings and numbers. So let me just go back to where we are. Okay. So strings are written inside double or single quotes. I've already played with that, right? So I can change this variable to use single quotes and it's going to work just fine. So, but the idea is it should just be in quotes. Okay. If I save, go, I'm still going to see Sammy. Then if you put a number in quotes, it will be treated as a string. So like we did yesterday, like we said yesterday, there are two data types, right? So this is a number outrightly. You don't need to put it in strings, right? If I save, it's going to like output a number on the web page. But if I put a number in quotes, it's going to be a string, or yeah, it's going to be a string, but with numbers. If you save, you might not see the difference on the web page, right? So, but you as a programmer or as a JavaScript programmer that you are, you always need to check the difference, right? So I'll give you a case scenario. If I'm building a software that checks, maybe I'm building a social media software and I want to check maybe what date is my user's birthday, or I want to kind of display something, or I want to kind of run a calculation, right? So if I save a variable with strings, right, and I want to do, let me just say, let's see. Okay, let me just do let pass day. I'm trying to create a scenario, right? 100. Then let's future. This future. Yeah, future days equals 50, right? So maybe I want to run a computation, right? Let's let today equals future days minus past days minus past days, right? So if, like, for example, now, so this let me make both of them. Let me make both of them numbers so we can run our computation easily, right? So if I save this and display today. As a result, I'm going to get 400 because I ran a calculation with numbers. But you as a programmer, where you need to know the differences between a string and a number. So when you're saving variables, you have to kind of use numbers if you want to use numbers, and strings if you want to use strings, right? So if I mistakenly or just unknowingly save past days as a string, right? And I try to run this computation. Okay, it's let me see, it worked. Let me see. Let me turn this the other way around. It still worked, funny enough. Okay, so I think where it misbehaves is when you use the plus sign. So JavaScript is going to help you convert these two to numbers. Yeah, so where it's going to misbehave if you try to combine strings and numbers is when you use the plus sign. So it's going to just concatenate it, right? So you see concatenate it 500, 100, but your intention was to add two dates. So I think it works with subtraction and division. Is going to compute it perfectly. Yeah, it computes it perfectly well. But if you try to use the plus sign on strings and numbers, it's going to concatenate it for you. So these are just some little ways you need to just be careful with knowing what a number truly is and a string. So this is a string as a, like, you just put a number in a string. So JavaScript will treat it as a string. Okay, so I'm just going to declaring the JavaScript variable. We already kind of learned how to declare a variable, right? And again, you can declare a variable and assign a value to it later, right? So I didn't talk about that. So I can do let's program, right? And I can just close it, and maybe I don't know the value of program yet. Maybe I want to get it from my Salesforce org, or I want to get it from somewhere. So maybe when I get it with an API call, maybe I get it later on. I can just do program somewhere equals to standard, right? Okay, so I'm just going to make this a little bit meaningful. I'll just say if true, program equals standard. So this is typically what you can, or what can happen, right? So you can declare a variable and assign a value to it later, right? So I think if I do this, okay, let me be that block scope will make this. Should have standard as a value of program, right? So you can declare variables. I can declare a couple of them. I program cohorts, yeah, right? I can declare them, right? So I just declared variables without value, right? So then maybe later when I get the actual value, I can give them values, cohort 3, yeah, 2022. I can actually put 2022 in a string because it's a year. And if I output cohorts, I'm going to see 3. Yeah. So just you can declare variables. So it just depends on use case. And I think we're going to be going over all the use case later on, right? So I'm going to take this out because I haven't talked about it. It might be a little bit confusing for now. Okay, so we've talked a lot on variables, right? You can put multiple commands on one line. Then yeah, so we've talked about all this, right? So I'm going to take a pause now to take if any of you have questions on what we've talked about so far, variables, right? Before I move to operators, arithmetic, and assignment, right? So I just want us to be comfortable with the basic stuff before we go into manipulating the HTML documents with JavaScript, right? So if you have some questions, you can just put your hands up. Okay, Omo.
Hi, Sam, thanks. So I was going through this document and I saw that it was saying that let and var, I know we use them interchangeably, but for let, it was saying we use it within in a block, right? So what does that mean? Can you please explain. Thank you. Do you get my question? Hello, Sammy.
Can you hear me? Yes, I do. I get your question.
Okay, thank you.
So there's what we call block scopes, right? So let me see if there's a topic on it. Let me just see. Scopes, JS scopes. So maybe when you start running complex, when we get to functions, objects, and other stuff, I try as much as possible to avoid bringing complex stuff in, right? So scope determines the accessibility or visibility of variables, right? So JavaScript has 3 types of scope: block scope, function scope, and global scope. So first of all, right, if you can see my editor, right, everything outside this file, everything here from line 1 to if it gets to 1 million line is the global scope. So if I define a variable here, let me take this up and go back to let program equals, right? So if I define a variable here, I'm defining the variable in the global scope so I can access it everywhere, anywhere in this file, right? But there are what we call block scopes and function scopes. So these were just introduced later on in an updated version of JavaScript, right? So if I do this now, this is in JavaScript, this is how you create blocks, right? So if you observe what I did previously, I created an if statement and I created a block, right? So when we get to functions, you're going to see that all this stuff works with blocks, right? So this is another block. But let me just clear this to show you an example. So if I create a dummy block here and declare a variable, let's today, because I don't know, okay, today is Tuesday. Tuesday. Let today equals Tuesday, right? If I try to access Tuesday here, it's going to throw an error, right? So uncaught reference error, today is not defined. Why? But we have today as a variable in our file. So this is where understanding scopes and accessibility works, right? So if you check the definition, it says scopes determines the accessibility, visibility of variables, right? So any variable you declare with let in a block stays within that block, right? So this is just a way to help like maybe programmers to just like compartmentalize their codes, right? So I can open up a block and do something, run it, and it will not affect what I have in the global scope. I can still create a variable named program. Remember, if I move this outside now, in the global scope, I cannot redeclare program is going to throw an error. I can do that in a block. This program doesn't know about this program. So what you should know is there's a global scope, right? The whole file is the global scope. Then there are block scope. Then there's still a function scope, right? So if I create a function, I write code. Let me see function. Declare function. Yeah, this is it. So if I create a function and still create a program variable, it's still going to be hidden inside here. So basically, what you should understand by this before we like go further is that there are just different types of scopes, right? Your whole file is called the global scope. Then there are what we call block scopes, right? We're going to use this a lot when we go ahead. You're going to see I can create a for loop, I can create a while loop. Then I'll open up a scope. Whatever variable I declare here stays inside here. So this just helps you avoid messing up your external scope or whatever variable name you created outside. So this is a block scope. This is how to use blocks, and any variable you declare inside block stays or is only accessible in blocks, right? Then here the problem with var. You said something about using it with var, right? So I think var just breaks this rule, right? So if I declare a variable with, let me take off this because it's going to cause a lot of problems. I think if I declare a variable with var in here, I can, okay, you see now. So var is globally accessible anywhere, right? So I just changed this to var and it's already shouting that there is already a variable named program. So, but let me just show you something. If I comment this out And remember, the last time when I created a variable program in the block, I couldn't access it outside. But if I try this now, it should display. Today is not defined. Okay, it's in the block. But okay, that's worked. But the thing is, var, it's a global assignee. Like, so if you use var, it's going to declare this variable globally, no matter, even if it's in a block. But once it lets,
Sorry. I think why it didn't work was you were not referencing that one inside the block.
It's true. Thank you very much. Thank you. var program equals Tuesday, like this, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. So you see, var is a global like declarer. So if you anywhere you use var, you are declaring the variable in the global scope, even if you put it in block, even if I create double blocks in here. So the funny and sweet thing with blocks, right? So this var, I'll still be able to access Tuesday. But say something, if I create, you can also nest blocks, right? I think if I create a variable in here and try to access it in this other block that it's in it, let me see console.log program. Yeah, I won't be able to access this program. It's that strict. If I save this, comment this, I'm going to see that program is not defined. So what you should know, you asked about the differences, right? So var, if you use var, and why I don't use var that much in my codes though. If you use var, you are declaring a global variable anywhere you try, anywhere you use it, right? But if you use let can compartmentalize or separate your variables in blocks. And this is helpful. Maybe when, imagine this file gets to 1,000 lines and you want to do some stuff with the same variable names, right? So you just use blocks and run your codes. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So, in fact, you even wanted to confuse me at the time, but it's okay now. Thank you.
Shalom.
Hi, Sammy.
Yeah. Hello.
Sammy.
Yes.
My question is, you said var is, I can't recall what you said just now, a global variable or something. So you see, you had var Sammy and then var Omo, and Omo was showing, but Sammy wasn't showing. Why?
Now, where was
no,
that?
No, when we just started, you had var Sammy and var Omo, and
okay, so
just Omo was showing.
Yeah, so I did var my name equals Sammy, right? Then I now came down and did var. So there are so many problems with the var keyword, right? That's why it was replaced or upgraded, right? So it misbehaves in so many ways. So ideally, this is not supposed to happen because I've already declared the variable my name, but I can still come somewhere else in my code, maybe down, and accidentally replace. Let me use a username typically, right? So maybe if you're building a program, the username of the user, then I come here and accidentally, and maybe I want to set name of a course, accidentally we type username, is going to be declared that variable without warning me. Okay, so that's where the problem is. It's going to be redefine that variable without warning me. It's going to change to Omo, but that might not be what I want, but most times it might be what I want. But why let was introduced, right? It's a little bit more stricter, but it helps you, right? So I cannot accidentally change this variable or redeclare this variable, right? So I cannot do let username called Sammy. I cannot come and redeclare. It's called redeclaration, right? If I check this or try this, it's going to throw an error. So that's just the difference. Those are just like some little differences between var and let, aside from the block scope and global scope. But I can change the value, right? So this is just me changing the value of username from Sammy to Omo, but I did not redeclare the variable. Shalom, did that help?
Kind of, it did. It's fine. Just before, please, can you go back to the code, the VS Code? Line 7. What is this? Is that something we have to add at the end of our
Okay, so
programming or something.
when I started, right? So we're going to play around with this more later, right? So this is where we're going to, this is what we want to be able to achieve, right? So I'm just using it to display our examples on the page, right? We've not learned that. But what this is like this is a command to use to manipulate your HTML document directly from JavaScript. I can delete everything in this HTML page now, right? From JavaScript, right? But we've not gotten there. So we are giving little examples. So I just wrote down a way to display our examples on as an output on our HTML. So what this just says is it's a command, right? Document. So pick the document. This is the HTML document. Document.get an element by ID. So if you go to my document, you're going to see I have one element by ID of display. So it just says get the element by ID of display, right? It's going to save it to memory. Okay, let me do something, right? Let me do console.log document.get element by ID display. Let me put it in the console so you see how it looks. So if I go to the console, can you see these are like the whole P tag? It grabbed the whole document. Can you see this? So like these are just ways to manipulate your HTML document, right? Then what I did, it's their commands we are going to learn later, right? I just set the inner HTML to our variable. I can use a text here, holiday, and it's going to whatever I said ask it to change it to, is going to change it to. So JavaScript is that powerful to change whatever you've written in your HTML. So that's what we just did here. Idea, Sharon?
I'm lost.
So okay, don't worry, right? We've not talked about the DOM. I showed it earlier. We've not talked about the DOM. We're going to have 1 full week or more to talk about DOM. The whole goal of learning JavaScript is to be able to use it in the browser, right? So when we talk about DOM, you're going to see how to use JavaScript to manipulate your whole HTML. So yeah, don't get lost here. We're going to talk about DOM later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ola, Daniels.
Hey, hi, Sammy. Just to follow up to what Shalom asked, can this JavaScript work on its own without reference to HTML or CSS?
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, I can. I write.
And because it means, okay, so go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, it can, right? It mustn't necessarily. It just helps. JavaScript is a programming language on its own, right? But it just helps. It can be easily it's how I put this, right? So first of all, it's a language for the web, so it can easily integrate with the web, and it has APIs to control the web page. But I can build standalone program that doesn't have a web page or that doesn't need a web page with JavaScript. I don't necessarily need to connect it to the web page, and it's going to work for me. I won't want to go into that now, right?
Okay, so what I just this JavaScript code page you're looking at now. So if you're typing let's username equals to Sammy, username equals to Omar, then you write the outcome you want.
Yeah.
If you don't put this document dot get element by ID there, so it's supposed to show whatever you want it to show. Am I correct?
Yeah. Can you come again with that?
Okay, so if those two codes you have on there from line 1 and line 3.
Yeah.
Right. I assume that this document dot gets element by ID is going to the HTML code sheet that we have.
Yeah.
Right. So if I don't want it to go through this document, I just want it to display what I have on this JavaScript. Will it do that?
You just want it to display. Where do you want it to display on this JavaScript file?
No, what I'm saying is I want to click the port 550 go live, right?
Yeah.
Without it referencing the HTML. Will it do that? Will it say, like when we started down, we had let's x equals to Volvo, let's y equals 5 plus 2, let's z equals to
x plus
y. So how do I get that result on the web without going to HTML?
On the web?
Yep.
Like on your web page, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. So
And that's what I'm
here,
asking you.
let me just help you. Let me just clarify this stuff, right? So if you're using or if you want to display or use JavaScript to manipulate your web page, you have to connect JavaScript to your HTML. Then maybe when you write your JavaScript codes, you have to do a manipulative, like you have to manipulate the DOM. You have to. If I take this off, nothing will happen to the page. Whatever I have on my HTML is going to load, right?
Fantastic.
So I get your point. So if I'm building, okay, let me just say, for example, I didn't want to, if I'm building a program that is not even HTML, if I'm building a back-end program, I can do amazing stuff and maybe run it standalone without a HTML file, right? So if I do return it, can I do this? Just to return it, right? So if I do this, I can invoke this function, return date. I'm not displaying it on the web, but if I open up my console, maybe I run this code on the server. Where am I? So I'll just do, this is just me trying to go ahead, right? Sorry. I'm going to do console.log. I just want to like let you know you can run JavaScript without a HTML document, right? If I do this again, I should see today's date, but you know it's going to be a little bit cryptic. I should see today's date in the console, right? So I can run it. I kind of create a program a command line program. I can create a standalone program and host it. But what we are doing, we're trying to use JavaScript with the web. So that's why we're using the document object model to manipulate the web browser, the web page.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we can go ahead. Okay, Omo B.
Sammy, please, I have just a quick question. I'm curious, when you have various lines of commands, and is it okay to use different variables? Will it still run? Or if you're using, assuming I'm using the let variable, I need to stick to the let variable, or I could use var variable for the next one. I know constant is something that doesn't happen all that would be maybe for something very specific, or between the let and var, can I use them interchangeably?
Yeah, you can use them interchangeably as many as you want, right? But by convention wise, it's always good to use only let. If you want to use var, the thing is, I can use there's no restrictions, right? Except you place restrictions in yourself. I don't show you how to do that, but but you can use var today. You can create millions of variables with var and let in the same file and nothing will happen as long as they are not the same name.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so okay, Enobong.
Yeah, sorry. I just thought maybe I should just add a little because of the confusion that Shalom was expressing.
Okay.
Yeah, the area where you did let username equals Sammy, and then you went ahead to do another one that was
Omo.
yes, Omo.
Okay.
Yeah. The document.get element by ID, which you use to display it.
Yeah.
You can maybe you should put one just immediately after the Sammy, and then put one after Omo, so that she sees that Sammy was actually there originally. But when it got to username equals Omo, it now changed what was inside the username and dropped Omo there. That's why it changed the name to Omo. I don't know if that will help her understanding. I just said, let me suggest
one,
it.
yeah?
No. Your code on line 7.
Okay.
Can you put that code on line 2? And then put the same code again after line 3, so that she sees that, okay, the first one had the Sammy, and then later it changed. The variable changed what it had as its value.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps. I'm just
it's going to help, But you know the funny thing, if I save
Yeah.
this before I open my web page, it will have run up to this line and changed the display on the web page to
Oh,
almost.
yeah, that's true. That's
So
true.
I
Okay.
won't be able to catch it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
But Sammy, sorry, you said yesterday that the var variable takes the most recent one and neglects all the ones up, no matter how much you have declared. It takes the most, as in the most recent one that was declared. Would that help? Like, even if you had so many, but the latest one is the one it just picks, right?
Yeah, so this is, I'm not redeclaring this variable, I'm just changing the value. I didn't use var again. I am not redeclaring it. So what you
Okay.
Yeah, what you're saying is if I do var username equals Sammy, I now do var username equals Omo, yeah, and I do var username equals Enobong, it's going to pick the last one. It's going to pick the last one. So if I do this, it's going to be an empty string, but I was just changing the value. I wasn't using. Okay, so I hope you understand that.
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
Let's move on. I think we've played enough with variables, right?
I mean, before we move on.
Let me see. Hold on, please. Enobong. Okay, Enobong has spoken. Ola, was that you?
Yeah, that was me. Before we move on, you said var is declaring variables, and the later one that doesn't come with a var or the let is just you assigning variable. What is the difference between declaring and assigning a value to it, and not declaring then assigning a value to it? What's the difference?
If I do let username equals Sammy, right? I'm creating a space in the memory. I don't like, this is like your I've forgotten what it's called. I'm creating a reference in memory, right? ROM, in the ROM memory. So the computer goes to memory, or the compiler goes to memory, creates a space and assigns it like, okay, this box, I wish I had it drawing box. So this box is, the name of this box is username and the value inside it is Sammy. So if I come down and try to do let username equals Omo, it's fast enough to have checked its memory space and see, oh, I already have an identifier name username. I cannot use this keyword to overwrite it. So it's throwing an error. But if I just say username equals Omo, okay, it means, okay, I'm aware that there's a box or a reference point called username. I just want to change what's inside the box from Sammy to Omo. This is going to work. But if you try to redeclare it, you're asking it to go delete or maybe go overwrite the previous reference it created for this same identifier username, is going to throw an error. But the downside of var is it's going to override it without warning you, right? So I am going to try to create, I think there should be a table with all the differences between var and let, right? So var does so many funny things without warning. Okay, but with let, the compiler is going to warn you outrightly that, hey, you're trying to delete a previous, in fact, it won't allow you because it might be harmful. Maybe you might not know. So see it like this. If you declare a variable, it creates a box in memory, it creates a space in memory and assigns a value to it. If you try to redeclare the variable, you're trying to delete or override, because I told you, like, so all these, the computer doesn't understand text, right? So it converts this to binary and let's say this is 110x. There's a way it saves all this stuff, then converts the same stuff and it sees that the names are the same. It warns you that you're trying to, what's it called? Redeclare. We call it redeclare. So see, cannot, I don't know if you can see this little modal, cannot redeclare block scoped variable username. So these are just some newest stuff. When we get to JavaScript versions, you're going to see the differences. So let's just helps you follow best practices, right? You cannot redeclare, but you can reassign. I can just change the value to Omo. I hope that helps, Ola.
Thank you, Tebs.
Yeah. Otman.
Hi, sir. Can you please touch on how you are connecting the JavaScript to the HTML? And you mentioned that JavaScript has an API that it uses to connect with HTML and the likes.
Okay, so it's not like it's not an API, right? So it's tags. We've not gotten to APIs yet. So there are two ways you can like kind of add JavaScript to your HTML, your web page, right? The first one is this is the syntax, right? So HTML has a script tag, so I can do script source the way we have for images. Then I'll put an address of the file. You know how we reference both links and images, right? I'll reference the file script.js, then I'll close this. So this is the syntax to include your JavaScript. Then again, I can still write script opening and closing tag the way we have with all other HTML tags and write JavaScript directly in here. Let's a equals 5 and it's going to work. I'm going to say, so let me take this out so it's not confused. I'm going to now say, let me copy this so I don't have to type again. So I can do everything I did here right inside this file. Document.get element by ID equals a. If I save this, it's going to change to 3, right? So I can append JavaScript in my web page and I can import an external JavaScript. So these are the two ways to kind of use JavaScript with your HTML. But it's always advisable to use external JavaScript files.
Okay. Yeah. Lastly, do you use a different command on JavaScript to comment or commenting?
Okay, so JavaScript commenting, right? I was going to get there. In HTML, the commenting, so each language has their own way of commenting. But if you're talking about shortcuts, right, it's the same thing. Command / is going to comment it. It's the same thing, but it's good you know how to. So if you want to comment single line comments, right, just put 2 / So if I go back to my code and here I just put 2 / not here, the beginning. How do I go to, yeah, just put / it's going to comment that whole line. Or I can come here and put 2 / then anything I type will be a comment, right? Then if you want to do multi-line comments, you're going to, just like how we have comments in the CSS, right? So / star / so anything you put here up to 1 million lines will be commented out. But again, it's still the same shortcut if you're talking about the keyboard command /
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so let's move to other stuff, right? Yeah, for every operator, arithmetic. I wanted us to do some stuff on arithmetic, but let's go to arrays. I think we've played around with variables a lot, and I feel I'm sure everyone understands how to declare and use variables, right? Operators, yes, we talked about operators, right? So operators are the equal sign. It's an assignment operator. It's not an equal to, right? So if I say let x equals 10, I'm assigning the value of 10 to x. Okay, so we've used addition already, so I don't need to go over it. Multiplication works the same way we had. I think let me bring back the example again. Let x equals 5, let y equals 7. Let x equals 5, let y equals 7. This is not y, this is 7. Let y equals 7, then let z equals. So initially we did x plus y, we can do x times 7. So you can perform any type of arithmetics in JavaScript and it's going to compute it for you. So it's 5 times 7. What's wrong? It's me. X times y. See. Yeah, 35. So you can do arithmetics and yeah, so these are all the JavaScript arithmetic operators, right? So you can just come here and go to JS operators. And mind you, you're going to be using this stuff a whole lot, right? I still come here to kind of cross-reference and cross-check stuff, right? So can use plus, minus, multiplied by exponential. I think exponential is the power of, right? So if I do x exponential 3, can I do this? Yes, I think I can do this. So it to be 5 times 5 times 5, 125, right? So all these are just mathematical operators, right? So 4 slash is division, modulus is remainder, right? So if I do z equals x modulus, where is my percent sign? X modulus 2, so I think this is going to be 1. Yeah, so these are all just algebra, like the normal maths operators, right? So it's just divide x by 2, the remainder, right? So 5 divided by 2 before remainder 1, it's going to assign the remainder to z. So it's just showing us that we can do all those in JavaScript, right? But this is something that is quite new. So there's what we call increments and decrement, right? So I can increment in JavaScript. So basically, if I want to assign 6 to z, I can, the normal thing to do is come here and say z equals x plus 1, right? So this would be 5 plus 1. If I save, z will be equals to 6. But there's what we call incrementation in JavaScript, right? I don't need to do x plus 1. I can just say x plus plus. If I save this, x equals x plus plus. I got the syntax wrong. Let me see.
Sammy, put this put the plus plus before the x.
Yeah, I know, like this is pre-implementation and it's going to be 8. Yeah, thanks. I don't know what that is, but z equals there's a way to do it, right? See, yeah, z equals x plus plus. So this is post incrementation and it doesn't add it immediately. Okay, so see what I wanted to do. So z plus equals, just hold on, sorry. No, this is not right. It's still going to be 5. Yeah, so you pre-increment it, right? So just know that plus plus is incrementation. You're going to add 1 to whatever value and it has to be a number. So this should be 6. Okay, so all these are just maths operators, right? So I think, see what I was looking for. X plus equals y. So we are going to be playing around with this when we get to conditionals. So you can just come here later on and learn them, right? Let x equals 10, x plus equals 5. So I think this x plus plus. Okay, so here is what I wanted to do, right? Not defining it. I can just do x plus plus and the value of x should be incremented. Yeah. So I know you can increment stuff, right? So I can do x plus plus and just add 1 to x. So yeah, so these are just stuff you can play around with. I think that was Otman. Thanks. String operators, right? So we've already played with this and you can concatenate strings. You can add 2 strings together. So I'm just copying and pasting and playing around with examples, right? So let text1 equals John, let text2 equals Do, text3 equals text1 plus paste plus text2. So if you paste out text3, it will be John Doe. I'm going to change this to show you a typical example of this, right? John Doe. So maybe you fill a form. The form will have typically first name, last name, and I can just say full name. So this is just like a typical example, right? So I'll just do first name plus space plus last name. So this is just concatenation. We're going to, it has a full chapter on its own, right? This is concatenating strings. And I can just say good evening, full name, right? So it's going to be good evening, John Doe. So you can combine text, you can add text and variable with your plus sign, okay? So these are just concatenations. Strings and numbers, we've done that. Okay, comparison operators. When we get to comparison, we'll do that. Yeah, so I'll just go to arithmetic. I want to get to arrays and objects. That's why I'm kind of skipping all this. So again, we've done all this plus, minus, plus. I think they're just repeating them. Operators and operands. Multiply. So let me just go to arrays, right? I want to talk about arrays, JavaScript arrays. So we've played around with variables, right? So there are two other types of variables, right? So the variables we know of saved just one value or one number. And mind you, this can be a full sentence, right? So I can save a full sentence. I can save a full dictionary in the variable. I don't think in JavaScript there's any limits. Okay, that stuff had punctuations and all. Let me just paste it and correct it. I'm going to just bring this back up. Let me just show you can save large text or long text in variables, right? And it's going to work. Yeah, so I've corrected this now. So first name will be very long Lauren is full terms, right? So see. But what I want to show us with arrays, right? So an array is a special variable which can hold more than one value, right? So if you see this const cars, so maybe you're doing a project that talks about maybe an automobile project, right? Const cars equals, you can save multiple values as strings separated in a comma in an array, right? So if you've not done any programming before, this is, you might not know how to declare. So these are angle brackets, and you put the value. You can have as much values as you want in this. Then when you want to use it, we're going to get to that. You can access each of these values individually via what we call index, right? So I think I tried this yesterday. So this is where we might start using console, right? I tried this yesterday and it displayed, but I don't want it to display like this. So we're going to start using our console now. So if I say console.log, if I go to my console, I'm going to see our three values, right? Saab, Volvo, and BMW. So why use arrays, right? So when we have variables, so imagine your build, you have a list of items, a list of car names, for example. Storing cars in a single variable could take, like, you can do car 1 to 100, Ford, Chevrolet. You can, maybe you want to build a car software, typically, right? You won't want to be saving them car 1, car 2, car 3, car 4, car 5, car 6, like that, right? So arrays just lets you group similar values in one variable, right? Excuse me. So you can do, maybe I think, okay, for example, in our last month we did a project, like we did, our first assignment was with food recipes, right? So we can just do const recipes. How do I spell recipes now? So I won't write what I don't know how to spell easily. So I'll just do const foods, and I can just name them soup or soups, right? I don't know the different types of soups, right? So you can arrays just helps you kind of group different values. You won't want to be creating soup 1 or soup 2, soup 3, like that, right? So arrays just helps you save more than one value in just one variable, right? I can make this more Utah. I can have as many as I want. This is how to spell them. Okay, let me not worry about that now. Okay, so if I check my console, it's going to have my updated list, right? So basically, arrays are a special variable which can hold more than one value. You can put as many as 50 to 100 or thousands of values in an array, and we're going to see how to reference them, right? So when we start, like, well, when we start like kind of working with the DOM and building stuff, you're going to see how useful all this stuff are. Okay, so what if you want to look through cars and find a specific one? Okay, so even though you have 100 values here, you can locate a specific one, or as long as you know the index, right? So what if you had three, not 3 cars, but 300? The solution is an array. So an array can hold many values under a single name, and you can access the values by referencing to an index number. Okay, so in JavaScript, there's what we call indexing, right? So like I explained to Ola the last time, right? So what the computer does, it creates a space or a box in memory and saves this stuff, right? So how indexing in arrays works, right? So this is typically, right, when you just looking at it, you might say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is the 4th item, the 5th item, sorry, and the 6th item. So if I go back to this lesson, you're going to see, right, item 1, item 2, and so forth, and so on and so forth, right? Then, but what you should know, right, in programming generally, not JavaScript, computers start indexing from 0, right? So, but rather, this is not 1, this is 0. So computers are like indexing count start from 0, right? So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 values here, but if you want to count via indexing, you start from 0. I'm going to show you why now. So if I want to maybe building my software, and I want to say I have an array of 300 cars, and I want to display BMW. Maybe I want to tell the user, would you like to check a BMW? I can access this particular value by calling the index, right? So if I do cars index, don't worry about the syntax, you're going to get comfortable with it. So if I do cars index, I said BMW, right? 2 now, right? So what I just did here, let me increase my zoom again. What I just did here now, I referenced the value on the second index, and this is 0, 1, 2. If I check my console, I'm going to see just BMW. So right now I can uncomment this and put cars index BMW. So BMW will display on the web page, right? So see, so basically, right, so this is how you declare arrays of multiple values. Then if you want to access any of the values, you use the index. If I change it to 0, it's going to pull up the first value, because the first value is the 0, has 0 index, which is soup. Why do I have soup in among cars? What's all that car make? I think Honda. Okay, so it's going to display Honda for us on the web page. So variables are just a special kind, arrays are a special kind of variables to hold group items, but you have to learn how to access them and play around with them, okay? Let's go back to our example. Okay, it's common price declare. Let me just see. Yeah, so these are just more complex ways. So this is how you assess them, right? So you can take as index 0, sub 1, 2, like that. And some more complex way to declare arrays, right? So I just want you to learn this, like the most simplest way to declare arrays. So I declared, if you remember when we were dealing with variables, I declared the variable let's my name, and I just left it. Then later I made my name to have a value of Sammy, right? So same thing goes with arrays. I can declare cars. Let's const cars equals new array. I think I can do this, but let me use one of the example. Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, so let cars equals an empty array. So I just declared a variable that's empty, right? Then later on I can do cars index 0 equals Honda. And without even adding more, if I check my browser, I should see Honda as the first index, right? So you can just come here, play around with creating arrays, and just get comfortable with arrays, right? So I'm just going to take it back to our list of cars. Yeah, so accessing array elements. You access an array element by referring to the index number. Okay, so I've already said it before I got here. each of all these values have indexes in memory, right? So, but the index doesn't start from 1, it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. And so if I change this now to 4, 5, 5, right, it's going to show Bentley. So it's not the spelling, just Bentley, right? It's going to show Bentley, right? So yeah. So this is, we already wrote this in our code. This is how to access variables. So array indexes start with 0. 0 is the first element, 1 is the second element. So this is not just for JavaScript, right? So I think all programming languages reads from 0 index, right? So I can change an array element, right? So I can come here and do cars index 0, yeah, equals to. So I accessed the first index. So these are just kind of the way we change the values of variables. We can also change values of arrays, right? So cars index 0 equals Opel. If I save, okay, I still have Bentley outputted, and change to trying to access the 0 index, I'm going to get Opel instead of Honda. Okay, so these are just ways to play with your arrays. Okay, so this is what I did the first time. I just outputted all and it showed everything as string, right? Arrays are objects. So I'm going to go into object, right? So we can understand what they mean by arrays are objects. But basically, just know you can use arrays to save groups of related items, and you can access them via index. So that's just the basics I want everyone here to understand if you don't understand that, right? So they are what we call methods, right? And all of these data types have methods. I'm going to go into that next once I take questions regarding arrays, right? But let me just see. You can add an array element. So all these are methods. So I'm just going to talk about them when I get to array methods here. Associative arrays, hold on. Okay. So yeah, so basically in a nutshell, right? So you use arrays to store like a list of related values, right? So it can allow you to save 100 of maybe a particular type of record, and you can access it via index. So accessing array, you can access an array via index or index number. So I have talked about variables and arrays. I really want to talk about methods. I'm going to talk about methods today, both numbers and strings and arrays. But if you have any question before I leave this, if you have any question about maybe how to declare or use arrays, you can just ask, so we can shed more light on that. Okay, Sagal. Hi, Sagal.
Yeah, hi, Sammy. So I have two questions. First one is, can an array contain other variables? And then my second question is, what's the difference between array and object?
Okay. So this is actually good. Yes, arrays can contain actual variables. So if you remember when we were like creating actual variable, we could do let z equals, and we put a computation, right? 5 plus maybe y, or y x plus y, right? X times y. Yeah, we can also do let favorite car equals. Then I can come here, cars, Honda, Volvo. I'm just going to change. I can add, let me add one last one and put favorite car. So if I console.log cars, let me console.log cars, we're going to see my favorite car truck among the lists. Okay, so see, I have truck here. So yes, you can put a variable in, you can put object, you can put functions. We're going to get to that. You can put a variable inside, and I can change all this to a variable if I have variable that they represent. Okay. And then you asked about the differences between objects and what's it called, arrays. So let me just get to object, right? So again, arrays just lets you save a list of string items, and I didn't mention, right? You can have anything in here. I can put numbers, mustn't necessarily be strings. I can put numbers. It's going to work, right? Yeah, I have my 23. So let me just quickly go to objects and explain what objects are. So object helps you, like let me see. So object just saves more information about a variable, right? In real sense, let's say you're building a software that has, let's say, a human or a car that has properties like I think I did this yesterday, weight, color, and methods. You will not want to save properties related to a particular person or object in 5 different variables, right? So let's say, okay, for example, these cars now. Okay, cool. So this would be a typical example of the differences now, right? So this see the differences, right? So arrays just holds the names of the cars. So what if in my cars app I want to specify the color of the Honda I have in stock, the models, the like other like little properties about each of these variable and each of these values, right? I can't do that with arrays. But objects, let me give you an instance of an object. Now, objects allows you to give key value pairs for a particular what's it called? So let me see. I can do const cars equals. So this is how to declare. Okay, I already have cars. Let me just take this off. Or let me just use cars2 equals Honda. Let me see Honda. Don't make it super complex. So color. No, let me not do this now. This will be super complex. Let me use person. Sorry, let me use person. Say first name. What else? Last name. I'm going to put in my last name. I don't know my height. I'll just put 200. Then stuff like this, right? So here's the difference between cars and objects, right? So sorry, between arrays and object. Arrays saves lists of maybe related and unrelated data in a single variable, right? But with objects, you can save like details of a particular variable and how, like, okay, I'm looking for the right terminology to use for it. Okay, so objects are variables too, but objects can contain many values, right? So I can save more details or more properties about a particular variable in object, right? So object is other languages calls this dictionary, right? I can do account balance account. Let me see, let me show you something. I can do account. Sorry. Like give more info about my account, right? So with object, you have the flexibility of creating more info about a particular, let's say, particular value, but arrays just gives you the ability to create a list, right? So if I do this, maybe I'm creating a social media app, I can come here later and access the first name of this person. So I can say person.first name. And if I go to my page, I'm going to be able to access just the first name. So in a nutshell, right? Arrays gives you ability to save a list of values, but object, you can save more detailed like properties of a particular maybe car or person or objects. Did that help, Sagal?
Yeah, it did. Thank you. Thank you, Sammy.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So no more hands are up. Okay, let me just go through this object since I already brought it up before I go to methods, right? So real life objects, properties, and methods. So in real life, a car is an object. A car has properties like weight and color and methods like start and stop, right? So typically what we can do here, right? So I can just, let me change our car's array to an object, right? I can do first one, let me take out this number. This favorite car. So I can do, so let me say I want to use an object to do this. Okay, I can do Honda, right? Then I can add the properties of the Honda: color, blue, model, right? So I can do this for all of that car. So with objects now, I can save additional details about a particular car. I'll change this to BMW, change this to Ford. So this is the flexibility that, so mind you, these are all variables, right? If you can see, I created with the const, I can do let, I can do a let car. They are all variables, right? But they have the whole different data types. So what object just allows you like kind of keep additional information or detail about it, more like it gives you more flexibility, right? So let me just continue on the content. All cars have the same property, but property values differ from car to car, right? So you really learn blah blah blah. This code assign a simple value fiat to a variable named car. So let's car equals fiat. We've already played around with this type of variable. Objects are variable too, but objects can contain many values, right? So const car type, the type of car is fiat, the model is 500, the color is white, right? So object just gives you ability to save more info about a particular variables. So what you need to learn about object, right, with arrays, it's just a list of items separated with strings, right? But objects are saved with key value. Okay, it's written as name value pairs here, right? So let me just take this back to a basic object. Let me see. Let me take it back to our person object. Yeah, so it's saved with name and value pairs, right? So this is the name, this is the value, this is the name, this is the value, right? So this is just a basic object. Is this car supposed to be person? Yeah. So this is name and value. So that's how you save values in objects. We're going to play around with this a whole lot, right? So object definition. Okay. So yeah, okay, I used the person as an example, right? So you can save details about a person: first name, last name, age, eye color, and other stuff like that. Okay, so the same way we showed us, or I showed you guys how to access arrays with index, the way to access, there are two ways to access properties of an object, right? You can do person.first name, and to help you, to get the first name value, or you can use indexing, right? But this time you have to put the value. So if I do person index first name in quotes, it's going to get the first name, which is Sammy. So don't like just, you're going to come back maybe and play around with all these. Maybe if you go over it yourself, right, it's going to be a little bit more understandable. So but I'm just kind of breezing over them. So methods. So I'm going to talk about methods, right? But I want to go back to strings. I know we've talked about strings. I want to show you something about methods, right? Because we're going to be using methods, string methods, and number methods when we start playing around with our web page, right? I want to talk about methods, number methods, and all that before I get to object methods, right? So if I go back to our strings, so okay, string methods, sorry. So string methods and properties. So basically, methods helps like you work with string. Like, so methods are additional functions. Yeah, methods are actually functions. Methods are additional functions you can use on each data type, right? If you remember, all these are different data types. A string is a data type, a number is a data type, Boolean is a data type, null, object, and so on and so forth, right? So they all have methods that you can use to maybe play around with them or do some specific stuff with them, right? I'm just going to play around with some little string methods. One we tried yesterday. Let me just clear all this. So one we tried yesterday was length, right? So this can come in handy when you're building complex applications that you want to kind of check some things, right? So let me just give you the syntax, right? If you want to use a method, right? If be it for numbers, objects, you use the dot notation, right? So if you can see, it says let text equals to A to Z, right? Then one of the methods attached to the string or one of the methods attached to this variable, I'm going to come back and explain something, right? It's the length method, right? So if I take this off now, let me take this off and show it. And I just do text dot. I'm going to see a whole lot of methods I can apply to this text variable, right? So there are a whole lot of them, but they are all methods on the string class. I don't want to go deep into that, but let me just show you text.length gives you the length of the variable, right? So it's just going to help you count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we all know the alphabets are 26, right? So text.length returns the length of the string, right? So just see methods as an already made set of tools the creators of the language JavaScript just added under the box, right, for you to just use and play around with. You can do so many things with your variable, like a string variable. Numbers has their own methods, strings has their own methods, right? So I'm just going to play with a few. We can touch others tomorrow, but I just want to show you that these stuff do exist, right? So you can extract a string part. So I can play around with this string. Let me just give an example, right? So this is a little bit complex. Let's string equals apple, banana, kiwi, right? I can slice the string and remove from the 7th character to the 13th character, right? So you might not see the use of this for now, but when you start building programs, you're going to see that you're going to need all these methods to kind of do and display some things, right? If I show you this now, it's going to return just banana. I won't want to do counting. It's, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So it started from the 7th index till the 13th index. So again, these are all methods on the string class. So this is a string and it has methods. I can just do this directly, right? I can comment this. I can just place a string and do dot slice directly on it. And if I go back, is it going to produce the same result? So okay, again, JavaScript counts from position 0. So we already established that when we were working on arrays. So there are a whole lot of methods you can use on strings. I will show you some fun ones you're going to be using a whole lot, right? So let me see. I already passed one replace. Okay, so this is one I use from time to time, right? You can convert a string to an uppercase, right? So if I go back and do, let me see, context equals today in lowercase, I can do so uppercase. I can do text dot to uppercase. Right? If I save this and check, it's going to convert this whole thing to uppercase. Yeah, so it's going to capitalize everything. So basically, right, methods are just additional functions or utilities that kind of gives you ability to manipulate your string or your variable. So you don't have to write them yourself. It has already been done for you. You just have to know them and use them. And we are going to be seeing use cases for them later. So just know that each of these data types, right? Objects, arrays, strings, numbers, they have methods, right? They all have methods you can use to play around with them. So what you can do is maybe come to this resource. I am going to share this link again and just play. I can't pick each and every one of them, right? But they are just important what's it called, methods you can just play around with here. So let me look for, okay, converting string to an array. I can convert a string to an array. Yeah, so basically, right, I just wanted to show you that each data type has methods. I'm going to go over this again slowly, maybe when we come tomorrow, but I just wanted to introduce it to you, right? So let me show you. So there are some fun things you can do with numbers, right? So you can change numbers to a string and back to what's it called, number. So all these, you have methods here that are going to help you when you're building when you're building maybe an exam or something. How do I put it? You're building a software that has to do with numbers, right? So let me use this example now. Let x equals 9.6.5, and you don't want to display your output with decimals, right? I can even use to fixed out off the top of my head. I can do x dot to fixed 1. I think it should change it just kind of round it to the there's what this is called in math, round it to the nearest, just like kind of round it up to 1 decimal place. Yeah, I think that's the word. So methods are just already written functions that you can call, and it's just going to help you format. If it's string, if it's numbers, it's just going to kind of help you, give you ability to format them in a more clean way. Okay, I don't know what to exponential does. Let me look for another cool. Yeah, so I use to fix now, right? So if I try to fix 0, it's just going to give me 6 like 10. Okay, yeah, it just rounded it up and gave me 10. So basically, again, methods are just functions that helps you work on each of these data types, right? So numbers have its own methods, string has its own methods, array has its own, like array has some cool methods, and object also has their own methods, right? So you can come around, play with it. We're going to talk about methods deeply, in-depthly tomorrow, but I just wanted to introduce methods, right? So the number method, let me see. Yeah, so let me not go into other data type method, right? So let me just go back to string methods and show you 3 or 4 string methods that you can use, right? So I've talked about slice. So maybe if there's a need to just get a particular part of a string, right? So it might be a little bit fuzzy right now because you might not be seeing use cases for it, right? But when you start using an application that you might want to maybe remove some text or format some text, or let's say you're building a dictionary, right? So I think I worked on something. I worked on the project some time ago where we like if you input a word or a sentence, we kind of go through the text and take out some bad words, right? So maybe in some insultive words, right? So all those are string methods. Let me see, string.slice. No, string.slice doesn't do that. You can use string. Let me see. There's one string method that does that. Yeah, so let me show you. Let me show you this, right? So I can replace an insultive word or bad word. Let's say text, please visit Microsoft. Then if I do let new text equals text, like this text variable dot replace, right? So what this method is going to do, it's going to look for anywhere there is Microsoft, even if this is 100 or 1,000 lines of lorem.ispoon of this is a full sentence. It's going to look for anywhere there's Microsoft and replace it with WTrace code. Let me just do replace it with black force, right? And I paste in text into the browser. New text. If I check, you're going to see please visit black force, right? So these are just like kind of helpful functions you can just use to play around with text. Replace returns a new string. Okay, so don't go into regular expression now. So you can just come, like if you have spare time, you can just come to all this or everything we've talked about today, right? And just play around with them, okay? Yeah, I talked about uppercase and lowercase. Lowercase concat. You can join 2 strings, right? I use this a whole lot for arrays, but let me just show you. So let's say you have two strings, text1 hello, text2 world. You can, the string class has a method that you can just call, and it's going to add the both of them for you. Rather than doing text1 plus space text2 like we did last time, right? You can just call text1.concat, add a space, and put in text2. So again, all these are complementary or helpful methods you can use to extend each of these data types. All of the data types has methods, and we're going to look into them from tomorrow. Stream. Okay, what this does, it just like if there's too much extra space, it just kind of clears them out. And all these are done under the hood. You don't have to know how it's done. Okay, so let me just stop here, right? If you have any questions so far, generally, I think we've just been doing like basic stuff from yesterday. We're going to just kind of wrap all this and go into DOM manipulation. So that's how we'll see how to use JavaScript to manipulate HTML. But before that, we have to learn some things about JavaScript, right? So please, if you have any question, like generally, yeah, okay, I just already answered that. If you have any question generally based on what we've done, like arrays, objects, string methods, and number methods, you can just raise up your hands. Okay, so it seems everyone is following, right? Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so those are methods, right? I didn't go through other number methods. Let me see. So you can just come around and the sweet thing about this content, right? It has examples and you can try it on the browser, right? So you can come around and play with these different types of methods, right? So let me go to Booleans if I have Booleans here. So JS Booleans. So JavaScript Boolean represents, okay, we talked about this yesterday, right? One of two values, true or false. So this is Booleans are like an important topic or stuff. It's an important data type in programming, right? Because when we get to conditions flows, you're going to be using Booleans to do so many stuff, right? So Booleans consist of one or two values, true or false. And in programming, so very often in programming, you will need a data type that can only have one or two values, right? Like yes or no. So maybe I think I wrote something earlier and I did if true. I said if true, then assign a variable, let's x equals new, right? So the importance of maybe Booleans is what, like this is a conditional statement, right? We're going to get into it much later. So if maybe let me just use a typical example. If I think if you've done maybe Salesforce, you should have used the if statement function, right? So if let's say 7 is greater than 3, so basically, right? So this is going to evaluate to true. 7 is definitely greater than 3. It's going to evaluate to true, and if it's true, it will run this code, right? So Boolean values are very important in programming and JavaScript, right? It's used to control flows, is used for comparisons and stuff like that. JavaScript has a Boolean data type. It can only take the values of true and false, right? I can use Boolean, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so this is what I just did now, right? So if I take this console.log this now, so let me show you something. Console.log, I can paste it in here. So it's just going to evaluate it and give me a Boolean result, right? True. 10 is greater than 9, definitely. But if I change this to 0 greater than 9, it's going to give me false. So see Boolean values as what we use to kind of run comparison and conditions, right? So these are the major uses of comparison and condition of booleans, right? So the chapter just comparison gives a full overview of comparison operators, right? So yeah, so if day equals Monday, if salary equals, so maybe when we get ahead, right, you're going to see, let's say you're going to see more use cases of this stuff, right? If day equals Monday, right? So maybe you're building a software that you have a variable called day. Let's day, let day equals Monday, right? So, but typically this would be a date data type. Then you can put an if statement if day equals. So remember, the single equal sign, it's an assignment operator we want to use. Equals Monday. Then maybe you can remind the user about an appointment he had on Monday. So this is basically how you build programs, right? You build programs with flow. I'll just do console.log. It's Monday, right? And I'm going to see that in my console because day was equal to Monday. So if I put something different, even if I just put an S here that doesn't evaluate to what this day actually is, it's not going to do anything, right? So just know that booleans are used for comparisons, and by comparison is what we have in this parenthesis, right? If day equals Monday and conditions, okay? Yeah, so there are some tricky things you just need to know about Boolean values, right? So everything with a value is true, okay? And okay, so there's something I don't know if I know some of you are going to know it, I did not mention. You can directly write JavaScript code in your console. I forgot to mention that, right? I can come here and do let's x equals 5, right? And if I want to see the value of x, I just type in x, is going to give me 5. So that is a good thing I just remembered. If you want to directly play around, I think Ola was asking that question, you can also come here and you can write anything here. I can do documents.getElements by ID and put display. That same thing I had in my code, and put the inner HTML. Yeah, so I changed it, right? So you can write JavaScript code directly in here. So I'm just going to go back to what I wanted to do. So everything with a value is true, right? If I do 100 equal true, what is it giving me first? Everything the value true. Let me see. 100 is true, 100 is Boolean. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so everything with a value in JavaScript is true, right? But I just needed to put it in a Boolean function. So this is true, minus 15 is true, but everything without a value is false, right? So if I try Boolean 0, it should give me false. If I try Boolean, I hope I'm not confusing everyone by using the console to type code now. Okay, so basically, what you just need to understand, right? We use booleans to run to kind of do comparisons and conditions, right? So when you start, when we get to doing much heavy liftings with comparisons, you're going to see where all this stuff comes in place, right? So I want to check, maybe if a user is filling a form, I want to check if first name, like the first name field, equals if it's an empty string. So if the user doesn't fill, so most times when you fill a form, if you just try to click on submit, it's going to tell you this field is required, right? So you can use JavaScript, like if the first name is empty, if this evaluates to true, like if the value first name is empty, this block of code is going to run there. You can just alert the user. So these are what we call conditions and comparisons, right? So everything type value is false, 0 empty string, it will always evaluate to false. undefined is false, and null is false, false is false, right? So there are just a whole lot of stuff you can just play around with here, but just know that Booleans are an important part of what we're going to do programming in JavaScript, right? Okay, so you can just come and read about Booleans. So, but tomorrow I'm just going to talk more on methods, number methods, string methods. Then we're going to go into comparison, right? So comparisons are, conditions. Yeah, so conditions are where it starts to get a little bit fun, because you're going to be using if-else statements to display something. You're going to be using conditions, right, to display stuff either on your console or your web page, right? So you can see a typical practical example. I think some sites you can see the site greets you good day, good afternoon, good morning, shalom, good morning user, right? They use if statement to run. So if dates, you can use maybe if today's date is equals to, like, okay, if hour is less than 18, we are still in the day, we are not in evening yet. So when we get to conditions, you're going to see how to use if-else statement to control flow on your screen. So does anyone have any question generally? Okay, so
I don't have a question. I just have an observation. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know if it's just me, but if we do 2 hours of listening, there's so much, like, until we practicalize them, we may not really know if we have understood all of them or not, right? That's my own thinking. So is this how it's planned out? Like, we just have to listen for 2 hours, then, or I don't, or is there are there times we need to do stuff and then see what's happening, or do you know how it's going to play out?
Are you saying for me or you on your personal time? So yeah, so the 2 hours classes, right, are for me to just go through these concepts. I switch between my editor and console and try it and give you output, right? But the thing is, you have to, even if maybe I ask, or I can't possibly ask everyone to always share their screen during class hours, right? You have to just create time on your own to just come here and practicalize those stuff, right? And the sweet thing about these resources, you can try it. Maybe if you don't want to open your code editor, you can try it directly on the browser. So to answer
No, Sammy, sorry, you don't get what I'm saying is, for the 2 hours for the lecture in the evening, is it we just listen all through those 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He wants everyone to share their screen and like maybe practice.
No, I was just thinking. It's okay.
So,
I just wanted to know.
So you listen, then I kind of go through, practicalize then, but you have to, because one thing I'm going to say, right? It's good you brought this up. One thing I'm going to say, no matter how attentively you listen to me and you understand it theory-wise, if you don't type or do, let's say, create a variable, if you don't do it yourself consistently, you will not get it. Like maybe it's just going to kind of like leave you, escape you, maybe in weeks or in 2 weeks, right? So you always have to go back to practice all this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to hint something on that, right? So I wanted to say everyone should just like kind of go through maybe from like the introduction to strings, but I'm just going to share some little snippet and excuse me, some little tricks or some little I've forgotten what it's called, But I know I have one link that is going to help like make all this, cheat sheets. That's what I'm looking for, right? So I'm going to share a link with some cheat sheets, but you have to, even if it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes a day, right? You have to always come, just practice and make mistakes and just try, especially with, there was a place we had numbers, adding numbers and strings. Just try, combine them, use var, let, and const and see how it behaves. So you'll be able to know firsthand like how all this stuff behave. If you just listen to me, even if I practicalize it and you watch me, you're going to understand it. But if you don't practice it, it might not fully stick. So this is JavaScript. You have to do it yourself. Okay. Yeah, so I think that'll be all for today, right? I'm going to share cheat sheets before morning in the group, so you can go through it and just kind of practicalize what we've done. I know this might not be the fun part of JavaScript, right? When we get here, when we finish everything and get to when we get to the DOM, you're going to see like the power of when we get to DOM using JavaScript with forms, validating form inputs, creating softwares like collecting username and passwords. You're going to see the power of JavaScript, right? But for now, we need to learn the basic syntax and how it works and how it is used rather. So if no one has any question, I think we can end the class here today. So thank you everyone. I'll see everyone tomorrow.
Sammy, please, what time do you normally upload?
I am not in charge of uploading, but it gets uploaded before 12 the next day.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Sammy, I have a question. Are we gonna have tutorials for the developers like before too, right? Is it gonna continue or
Before
no?
what?
Like the 2 hours, like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I am going to confirm that and get back to you. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to confirm that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So thanks everyone. And bye. Good night.
Thank you, Sammy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.